Durant blows by Primo. Attack!
Jokic in the power. Here it goes. Got it. Denver has won.
But that's my stubborn side. Like, it's easy to go somewhere and go and win a championship with somebody else. It's easy. But this is the hard way to do it, and we did it.
We welcome you in to the Small Ball Podcast alongside the great Christian Dennis and our wonderful producer, Andy. I'm Scott Ayers. Our good friend, Trevor Mikulin, is gone for another week. Christian, I know this stings for you. He's in your favorite city of Sacramento. If you've been following us, we are doing our kind of tour around the U.S. And at the start of our last couple episodes, you were kind of giving some fun rundowns of the great city of Sacramento, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a place I grew up. I know it like a hometown. It's my hometown.
It's like hometowns. And that's actually a great question. Bachelorette. Let's say you were on The Bachelorette. You get to the last 3-4 contestants. It's hometowns. What is the first thing? Let's say her name's Susie. What's the first thing Susie's going to say the second she gets off that plane and takes in Sacramento?
She's going to get off the plane and she's going to go, the capital of California.
She's going to go, luxury.
She's going to see those trees outside and she's going to say, wow. And then I'm going to say, yeah, I know. And that's basically all we're going to do at our time in Sacramento.
That is the beauty of Sacramento. And the wonderful thing is, we also have our producer, Andy, here. And Andy was talking to us kind of before the show. This is the funniest thing I've ever heard from someone is that, you know, everyone has a type, right? Some people, they love a certain hair color. Maybe some, they love athletes. But for Andy, it's a little bit different. Andy loves doctors. He loves doctors, and Andy, you have a little story for us, and I hate to put you on the spot, but we do have to hear about your Dr. Oz experience.
Yeah, not Dr. Oz. Oh God. But okay, so basically, it goes back to like a week ago. I got a random bug bite, unknown bug, right? And I thought it was a mosquito bite. Kind of itched a little bit. Went on with my life. Right. A week later, fast forward, my bug bite is really, really bad. It is looking gnarly. But so I go to the Minute Clinic the next day, right? And I go to one of them, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't really do that here." And I'm like, "Look, I just needed to test if it was like Lyme disease or something. Like maybe I got bit from a tick in California. Like anything could happen. I just wanted it. I just wanted this fix." And so they're not gonna do it. I go to another clinic. Their computers are down. I go to another clinic. And then finally I get there and I see the doctor and she's like, "Hey, we're all booked up for the day. Like there is no way I can get you in." And I was like, "Look, I just need you to see this and tell me if this is Lyme disease." So I show her the back of my leg, simply just turn around. And then she's like, "Oh my God. Oh yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to get that checked out." So I go to the urgent care. Right. And then I eventually get it checked out and whatnot. She calls me back later and she's like, "Hey, did you get that checked out?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, what's wrong?" And I was like, "I don't know, blah, blah, blah." And then she's just like asking me about like what it is and everything. And so I'm just like, all right, whatever. Maybe she just wanted to check in, you know?
Being a good doctor.
Yeah, it's what any good doctor would do.
Yeah, exactly. A great doctor would check in on a patient that they didn't even see.
Okay, so what happened next?
Continued on with my day. Get another call at like 3:30, and she's like, "Yeah, I just wanted to see if you wanted to make an appointment. It turns out we have a couple open slots for the rest of the day. So if you want to come in, just like let me know."
She's like, the weird thing is, only availability is in my bedroom. I don't know if you're free. Yeah.
This sounds more like a business woman than a doctor.
Yeah, is she trying to get me in to pay for pay for more med bills or something?
Yeah, she's gonna try to get you into a scheme where you're buying hair products.
Yeah. So after like the third encounter, I was like, all right, something's up. So I have to go back to the pharmacy right after work and pick up the meds that I got from earlier in the day. I go back to the pharmacy. She's there.
What?
She's there.
No.
Yeah. So this happened right after I talked with you guys. And so I see her and I'm just like, hey, like, this is what the doctor gave me and everything, you know, just talking shop, you know?
Yeah,
and
of course.
And then afterwards, I'm like, hey, can I get your number? And she gave it to me.
Wow.
Yeah. So it definitely worked out.
Wait, you didn't have her number, but she's been calling you?
How's she been calling
From
you?
an office phone. So, so I get the number right. And then later on at the gym, I'm like, all right, let me text this. But let me check, actually. Let me check one thing real quick. Look at her number that she gave me in my notes app, right? And then I look at the number that she called me with on the office. It's the
We'll believe.
It's the office number. So I think I got curved. But who knows? I'll make another appointment.
Nice.
Dang. Now it's going to be awkward when you make the appointment. And then she's like, I can't. So here's
John.
No, but she was super nice, and I'm really glad that she checked in on me because the bug bite was pretty radical. But yeah, you win some, you lose some. It was a great story, though.
Yeah, if you're a listener, what is the moral of that story? Is the moral Andy continuing the hot pursuit? Is it the fact that he got his legs saved? Or is it that love is dead?
I feel like, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And although the doctor was shooting all the shots and she was hitting the shots, when Andy went to shoot the shot, he missed. But that doesn't mean it's the end of the game. This is just
third quarter.
Yeah, we're getting into the crunch time, and I guess we'll find out more once you make that appointment. What happens from this?
See, gotta schedule the follow up.
Yeah, there's got to be a follow-up scheduled.
Yeah, so tune in next week, and hopefully we'll have a follow-up.
I need a follow-up.
I need it bad. What's her name? First name?
Lauren.
Okay,
Lauren.
don't give us last, but Lauren. Okay.
That's a solid name.
Yeah, Dr. Lauren. She was very
Dr.
nice.
Lauren.
Dr. Lauren. All right. Well, Dr. Lauren, if you're a fan of small ball, we ship it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the power to you.
All righty. Well, Andy, we appreciate you and your vulnerability to start this show. But this is a basketball podcast, dang it.
It sure is.
And we're here to talk about basketball. And if this is your first time listening, welcome to the show. Hello. Cheers. And we're covering a team that has had probably the most interesting offseason.
yeah.
I don't know if there's a team that has had as much going on as the Utah Jazz. Utah making that huge trade earlier this offseason for Rudy Gobert. And it kind of stems from the last couple seasons really not being able to get it done in the playoffs.
This is the domino that needed to fall. Rudy and Donovan, they weren't working together. They didn't seem to like each other so much. So the Utah Jazz decided to make a decision that we're going to go with Donovan. We're going to trade Rudy. And when we're going to trade Rudy, we're going to get a butt ton of stuff. And that's exactly what they did. And there's still, speculation of them potentially trading Donovan Mitchell, and they head towards that rebuild. And if they do, they're not in a terrible spot because they just acquired like 5 picks from the Wolves. And then if they trade Donovan to like the Knicks, for example, they're probably getting 5 or 6 picks from them. So it's like the rebuild is begun. And that's not even to mention Bojan Bogdanovic, Mike Conley Jr.,
Patrick Beverly,
even Jordan Clarkson. Those guys can get traded. I'm sure a contender would want to throw a pick or something to get one of those guys because those guys can be good, solid role players that can help in playoff situations. So the Utah Jazz are in a super, super interesting position, and I don't know what they should do.
I don't either, but if they are to rebuild, this is the time to do it in the West. Just because we've talked about it on this show before. It is just so deeply entrenched with 5 or 6 teams that with this current roster, it's not enough. It's not enough to win the West. Donovan Mitchell is a fun, explosive star in this league, but you need way more around you to actually compete. They had the best defensive big for a couple of or several seasons, and the furthest they could get in the West was a semi-conference, and that's just not good enough if your expectation is to win a championship.
Definitely. I think, they did the right move of splitting up what they had because obviously it just wasn't cutting it. I feel like they need to pick a side now. Do you just go all in, build around Donovan, or do you ship him off and start over? I don't necessarily think Donovan is like that number one guy, but he's really, really good. And, if they're able to build some solid pieces around him, they can remain competitive, but he's not going to elevate you to the next level unless there is someone who is equal or greater to his talent, because he is going to be awesome if he can kind of play off of someone more than what he was doing with Rudy. Rudy just didn't provide anything offensively to where they could be a dynamic duo. And so he needs that duo.
I totally agree. And maybe this is a silly comparison, but you almost think of Jamal Murray in Denver. I would put Donovan's offensive game better than Jamal's. I don't think there's a question there. But kind of a similar situation where you're number 2, you're a really, really good player, Donovan being better than Jamal, but you need someone else around you to elevate you. And what Jokic is able to do in Denver, obviously that's a 2-time MVP, but you still need someone to elevate your game. And Donovan just doesn't have that in Utah. And so because of that, people are able to just pick out his flaws a little bit more than versus if he's in a better environment, which is hard to hear if you're a Jazz fan. And that's not to say that they can't improve that environment, but what are those next steps? And maybe it's looking to trade some of those players acquired in Minnesota. Maybe it's trading some of those picks acquired in Minnesota if you want to remain competitive.
Yeah, their situation almost kind of reminds me of like Portland, how Portland has Damian Lillard and like that's their guy, but who's the running mate there? Nurkic? Like, that's not going to do anything.
Jeremy Grant, right?
Jeremy Grant, like, that's not going to do anything. And Dame has never played with someone who was better than him. He played with CJ McCollum, who is at times a similar status of an offensive threat, but he's not better than Damian Lillard. And those types of guards, being a little bit smaller guards, they need a wing player who can be dynamic, and so that they have different options to provide on an offensive end. And then as well, you need that guy on defense who can pick up for the lack of defense that these guards are providing. So yeah, it's just interesting how some teams are a lot similar that we think. But one thing I don't want to, discredit is the fact that Patrick Beverley's never missed playoffs.
Never missed the playoffs.
So if I'm a betting man, I'm not betting against Pat Bev. So if he's on Utah's playoff bound. Easy.
And yeah, take that and run with it if you're a Utah fan. And that's not to say they don't have talent anymore on this roster, because that's not true. It's not like this Rudy Gobert trade was, they've got nothing bottom of the West, because their backcourt is still pretty darn talented that we mentioned. Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell, Pat Beverley, Jordan Clarkson. Those are all, like, their backcourt is
pretty solid.
Pretty darn solid. we start to have some questions, though, first and foremost at the center position. Walker Kessler, is he going to be the starter in his opening season? Right now, I think he's the only center of any worth right now on the roster now that they've also lost Hassan Whiteside.
Yeah, that's an interesting move because if you're rolling the team off with a rookie in Walker Kessler, I don't think it's going to be very good. I mean, big men have been notorious for, taking time to adjust to the speed of the game. And, on early stages of their career, guards are going to try to pick at them and blow by them. So I think Walker Kessler has potential to be a good defensive player. I don't know if he'll ever be to Rudy's standards, but I think he's going to take some time to get used to the speed of the game. And I mean, if that's your starter, it's not looking very good from a defensive end for the Utah Jazz.
No, and the issue as well is, just like you said, there's so many talented bigs in the West. They're going to have to play Minnesota several times, Denver. It's
Sacramento.
Sacramento with it's going to be a doozy for Utah in that regard. And they did acquire Vanderbilt, which was
solid player.
Solid player. Yeah. And so starting five, what does that look like? Mitchell, Conley with Beverly playing probably 6-man type of role.
Right.
Bogdanovich at the 3, Vanderbilt at the 4, and Kessler at the 5.
Yeah. It's like a lineup of I don't necessarily know what we're doing yet, but we'll figure it out. It's kind of like, let's just go into training camp. Let's see what's going to happen. And then go from there. I wouldn't doubt if the Utah Jazz are early in the season talking about trading off certain players. And especially if they make it to the deadline with, Conley and Mitchell and Bogdanovich, Pat Bev. If those guys are still on the team come deadline, I could picture them being the most active team in the NBA because all those guys have good worth, good value. And at that point of the season, I would imagine they're looking to make a choice on which direction they're going.
And I think that might actually be the right move if you are Utah, is actually just waiting half a season to actually figure out what you're going to do. Just because they have so many things developing, I should say, with a brand new head coach. Looks like half of a brand new roster. It's really just impossible to tell how good Utah will be. I really see them at best being 5th or 6th in the West. I see that as their peak, and that's probably a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree there. I think that's a little bit of a stretch just because of what the Western Conference is. I mean, you have teams like the Pelicans who they initially were the 9th or 10th seed, but then got in for the 8th seed. Acquiring or getting Zion back, I think they'll make a huge jump and kind of accelerate themselves up the ladder. The Clippers getting Kawhi back. You also have the Nuggets getting Jamal back. There's a lot of teams in the West that are getting better or got better just solely off of players coming back from injury. And I think Rudy Gobert, he hit a lot of the defensive issues the Jazz had.
Right.
And so now that he's gone, and even the fact that they traded Royce O'Neal, who was a solid defender. I mean, I guess Vanderbilt can pick up his slack, but those players were huge in the defensive abilities of the Jazz. So it's going to be a hard sort of transition for them to be a productive defensive team. Because, I mean, offense, you have Donovan Mitchell, you should be still fine.
Right.
But it's just the defensive end is going to really kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does kind of feel like that clock is ticking. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think if you're a Utah fan, the last thing you want is to see, probably for a lot of them, their favorite player get traded.
Right.
And that's a very natural reaction. I don't think there's any issue with that. However, if you get kind of what New York is offering, and they'll probably offer more if Utah kind of plays tough with them. Yahoo Sports reported yesterday that the Knicks offered Obi Toppin, which there ain't no stopping, Evan Fournier, and 5 first-round picks for Donovan Mitchell, which I'm not sold on Obi. I'm not sold on Fournier. 5 first-round picks, that is a hefty haul. And they probably get maybe some young pieces in that as well. But that's something to consider, that maybe Utah kind of falls into that OKC position where you don't necessarily are going to be tanking for years on years, but you can have a fast rebuild if you do it correctly.
Definitely. I know, with acquiring all these picks, it gives you a lot of flexibility. The OKC route is showing to be not the worst idea because they have such, they have a team full of young, good talent. And I mean, last time the Thunder made the playoffs were like a couple years ago, and they're looking like they're on the right track to be, making some noise here fairly soon. And they don't even have to go that full route. They could, maybe another star comes available and it's like, oh, we have, 10 first round picks within 4 years. Maybe we can come up with a package and acquire a young star or potential all-star who is disgruntled in a place.
Yeah.
That's another option.
And that's kind of what we are waiting to see, because we're still in the heart of summer. It's the dog days of the NBA where really it's just speculation. You see something from 3 fake NBA accounts and 1 real account, and then 3 more fake accounts will tweet something, because NBA fans are just starving for something to happen. Just a side note, even the Kevin Durant saga, where everyone's starving, maybe something juicy will happen to a massive superstar, and really nothing comes into fruition. So that's just kind of how the NBA is right now. We're just waiting to find out what teams are going to do, and Utah is kind of at the center of that, where are they going to trade away their superstar, and what is that return going to look like? In my opinion, at this point, I do think it's probably necessary, just with what we've mentioned, what's around Utah, and what's around as in the teams in the West. And things can happen every year, right? Anything can happen, but I just don't see it getting a lot better for the next couple seasons.
Yeah, definitely. I just hope now, especially you just mentioned the whole KD saga kind of coming to an end with them deciding to run it back. I hope now that door is closed, maybe we start getting traction with Donovan Mitchell. Maybe there's other teams that come into play. One team that I thought would be kind of interested, or should be a little interested, they were interested in Kevin Durant, is the Memphis Grizzlies. Like, why go for Kevin? Well, okay, let me rephrase that. Kevin Durant is Kevin Durant. Yes. I understand why you would go for him, but why not ask about Donovan Mitchell too? You have assets that might be more appealing to Utah than those assets appealing to Kevin Durant. And just think of a backcourt with Ja Morant and Donovan Mitchell. That's electric. Yeah. That is insane athletic guard play right there, which could make a lot of noise. They have a great culture, grit and grind. So that would be really interesting.
And the return would be great for Utah too. Utah would not be getting a mediocre return. They'd probably get Desmond Bane in that. They'd probably get a buttload of picks, and they'd get some of the young talent that Memphis has. So it would probably be a win-win for both teams, especially if Memphis is, hey, we are in a win now. This is our window. Yeah,
no, definitely. I think that would be just really cool to have them kind of come up with a package. Maybe even a team that's a little close to home here is maybe like the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Ooh, Andy.
Could be a little interesting. I don't know necessarily if they have the draft capital to provide that, but Colin Sexton is a good young player that could be added into that package. Maybe you throw in a couple players like Isaac Okoro or something. Just, throwing names out there. Maybe you guys don't like Lauri Markkanen enough to keep him. So, having a team like Cleveland would be really interesting because they kind of have been wanting that guard scorer. That's why they acquired Karis LeVert to try to improve that. Adding Donovan Mitchell to a team with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, Darius Garland, like that's really solid. And that's probably better than any of those Jazz teams, talent-wise.
I agree. And that's why if you're Utah, hold off, I think, on making a trade right now. Wait until we get into the heart of the NBA season. Teams are going to be hungry. They're going to think that they can make a certain type of push. And for Utah, you're going to be able to receive a whole lot more in terms of a package, which that's kind of the name of the game. If you're trading away Donovan Mitchell, is you get a really sweet package in return that as a fan, it will hurt to lose him, but you're going to look at their turn and say, hey, we got something really great back. That's if you have, smart GM play. If your GM, trades him for a bag of Pringles, or not a can of Pringles, not even a can, just a bag. It's just a bag from someone who's eaten half a can. Then that's more of an issue more than anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
Andy, you got something to add?
Yeah, no, I never actually really thought about that, but I don't hate it. I've always kind of been on the fence about Donovan Mitchell just because, the way he kind of plays and everything. Like, he doesn't really play defense and anything, and that's kind of important for the NBA, if you want to win a championship. But I like it, though. I think it would be really fun, and I think that would give the Cavs what they need is, like, that super solid scorer. And plus, like, the rest of the team is very good on defense. So as long as we don't give up, like, those key assets that keep us great at defense, I think that could be really fun.
Could be an awesome fit.
Yeah, and you're right. They do have the assets. Like, it could be really fun. But
yeah. And then also you're totally forgetting, but LeBron has a player option, so he just declines that and goes back to Cleveland. There's your small forwards. Like, there you go.
Yes, that's exactly what
Cleveland, this is for you.
I love that.
That actually gets me excited for Cleveland.
That would be the perfect storybook ending for LeBron's career.
LeBron, his son, and Donovan Mitchell right off into the sunset.
Yeah.
And then Mitchell comes back because, he's young. But but LeBron rides off into the sunset.
And then we win 6 more championships.
And then Cleveland wins 6 more because they've got both James bros on the team. That would be awesome.
Yo.
Hey. Whoa. Well, guys, that felt like a pretty good summary of the Utah Jazz, did it not?
Yeah, and a little bit about the Cleveland Cavaliers, too.
And a little bit about the Cleveland Cavs, and a little bit about love and Andy's doctor. Which, Andy, you know what? I know you've had experience with dating doctors before.
Yeah, if that one would have worked out, that would have been my 4th.
Wow, I did not know you've been in and out of the hospital.
Hey, find your way in, you find your way out.
All right.
Gosh, I love love. And that is how we end today's episode. So for our Dr. Guru, producer Andy, our dear and wise Christian Dennis, I'm Scott Ayers. We say so long for now, and we will see you next episode.
So you like jazz?
Hey, great job. You made it to the end of the video. We thank you so much for watching us here on the Small Ball Podcast. We're the only channel covering small to mid-market teams. So please make sure you hit that subscribe button. Find us on Instagram at Small Ball Podcast. Thanks so much, guys.